Well, another iconic 80s teen movie is turning 40 this year, and that's Pretty in Pink, originally released in theaters February 28th, 1986. This was one of three John Hughes films that Molly starred in, the three being 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink. This may be my favorite for sentimental reasons, but also just because the characters were so quirky, starting with Andy by Molly Ringwald, who is like a working class, creative, intelligent, like independent high schooler. Her hipster best friend, Ducky, played by John Cryer. Andrew McCarthy, one of the 80s heartthrobs, playing Blaine, the rich, preppy, sensitive guy who falls for Andy. Of course, his douchebag best friend, Steph, being played by James Spader, who is the blueprint for these kinds of characters in the 80s. And even guest spots by Annie Potts as her fabulous boss and mentor. And her father was played by Harry Dean Stanton, who's a legendary actor. If you haven't seen Paris, Texas yet, you should, but this is such a strange casting, but it also works. There was a lot of twists and turns in this original casting. The part was written for Molly Ringwald, and originally part of Ducky was for Anthony Michael Hall, who was in The Breakfast Club, but he didn't want to be typecast, so he backed out, ended up going to John Cryer, who was perfect in it. And originally they wanted the love interest to be like kind of a hunky jock type, but Molly really lobbied for Andrew, saying, this is the kind of guy that I would fall for, and she was right, and it worked, and he credits her a lot for kickstarting the big part of his career. The style gets talked about a lot in this film because it was 1986, and so Andy and Ducky were really eclectic and had a lot of like thrifting and DIY outfits, and it really worked for their characters. It was very like vintage inspired, layered, bohemian, and of course Ducky's look is very like rockabilly. And going back to Steph for a minute, this was very like teddy boy, preppy, clean suiting of the mid 80s. Funny enough, this monstrosity of a prom dress that her character made at the end of the film made Molly cry because she did not like it at all. Of course, one of the best parts of this film was the soundtrack. This was a best-selling soundtrack on its own, and Rolling Stone has it listed in its like top 20 soundtracks of all time. And yes, this movie was named after the Psychedelic Furs song, but of course the big single off of this movie was OMD's If You Leave. If you're interested, they've actually done a 40th anniversary reissue of this vinyl with some extra tracks. It's worth a rewatch. It's still so fun. It's such a time capsule. And yeah, what's your favorite Molly Ringwald John Hughes movie?